Welcome to Spectacle on Television Nigeria this morning. We will be dealing this morning on a special edition on the statements of Mr. President yesterday. I'm talking about President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria. And the trending issue is that he granted 20 solid answers to interviewers, and we'll be looking at them one after the other, you know, to set agenda for his government, his second term in office, to also beam our periscope on issues that matters, especially security and other things about governance, the National Assembly issues, talking about the tussles between the National Assembly, that is the legislative arm, and the executive arm. My name is Daniel Atai, your host. Shortly, I'll be with you.
The question of leadership is a factor in this regard to the success of the fight against the Boko Haram terrorists. And then you look at also the factor of morale.
Yeah, I will be discussing those 20 answers that Mr. President gave to the press yesterday during the State House press conference. And I will bring in analysts that will do justice to each one of them. President Muhammadu Buhari on Monday granted a special interview where he spoke to the nation on some of his achievements in the last 4 years and made projections into the next 4 years. Below are some key points he made in the interview. Number one, my government has been able to bring relief to the people of the Northeast, talking about the Boko Haram area that had crisis over a decade ago. Number two, before I came into office, 17 local governments were under Boko Haram, but today, no territory is currently under them. If it's a fact, we'll let you know. Number three, the president said, my frustration is that we cannot move faster in the prosecution of corruption or corrupt officials because of the system. Which system is Mr. President talking about? Corruption could not be fought because of the system. Which system? Number four, National Assembly was wrong to want to dictate the terms. Really? National Assembly wants to dictate the term. Which term? Number five, I asked Saraki and Dogara how they felt holding the budget for 7 months. Holding a budget for 7 months cannot be justified. That was what Mr. President said. Now, the National Assembly under the 8th Assembly under the Senate President Saraki held the Nigerian budget for 7 solid months. Is it to favor the Nigerians or not? Or is it a kind of fighting the president who is to gain favor or to benefit from the budget, the passage of the budget? We'll look into that. Number 6, I rate the 8th Assembly very low. He must have his reasons. Number 7, community leadership to a large extent has failed the country. Talking about information from the communities, the leadership of the communities, talking about traditional leaders. Number 8, I am satisfied with the efforts of the service chiefs, but I expect more. Talking about the security service chiefs of this country. Number 9, among the 4 divisions, then I commanded 3, but I can say that security has degenerated truly. He accepted that security has degenerated. Number 10, I expect absolute community security. Absolute community security. How? Have the traditionalists been empowered? Or do we have state, police? Or have we given a kind of weaponry autonomy to the vigilantes? We'll digest into that. Number 11, I will make the police and the judiciary more efficient in the next level. So the judiciary, which is an institution of democracy, one of the solid institutions of democracy, Mr. President just promised he will make them very viable, responsible, and the police as well. Number 12, you cannot accommodate criminals in your neighborhood and continue to blame government. That is correct. Number 13, all those who call me Baba Go Slow will see if I am slow or not. Baba Go Slow. You are not slow indeed. Number 14, I have addressed my cabinet and said goodbye to them. Talking about his ministerial cabinets and so on and so forth that have just, their tenure just expired. Number 15, when the time comes, those who qualify to continue with me will be unveiled. Of course, it's talking about those who continue as ministers and so on and so forth among his cabinet. Number 16, one of my great happiness is that we had very little scandals in this cabinet. It's a few scandals, which means the people that made up his cabinet were very, very professionals and technocrats. Number 17, Nigerians must trust me this time to make better choices in my cabinet. Are there issues of godfatherism or anybody dictating for Mr. President? We have always given you the trust. Number 18, my secret is that I try very hard to survive, and those who want to survive must try harder. Really? Number 19, by jogging in Saudi, I am complying with the Hajj rites. Then number 20, who is the president before God? What a big question. Shortly, I will introduce to you my guest who will be with me in the studio, talking about Mr. Silvanus Okpe, a political activist, a social commentator, and a far-right, human rights activist. And also, a lady will be joining me shortly in the person of Aisha Salihu. She is from the TNN. Stay tuned.
The question of leadership is a factor in this regard to the success of the fight against the Boko Haram terrorists. And then you look at also the factor of morale.
Welcome back to Spectacle once again. With me this morning, like I said, Mr. Silvanus is already here on seat. Mr. Silvanus, welcome to Spectacle on Television Nigeria. And the lady activist, Aisha Salihu, welcome to Spectacle on Television Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. Now, you heard the introduction of the topic, and this was yesterday's State House interview with Mr. President, talking about Muhammadu Buhari, our president. Now, number one, he said, my government has been able to bring relief to the people of the Northeast. And number two, he said, before I came, 17 local governments were under Boko Haram, but today, no territory is currently under them. Could you justify this statement, Mr. Silvanus?
You know, I will first start by thanking Mr. President for deeming it fit to talk to the local media. You know, we had expected the president to give us an overall breakdown of his 4 years in office, because we installed him as the president of Nigeria.
You voted him?
We voted him to lead this country. Yeah. And we believed in his visions. And we were expecting that he would come from time to time to brief us on the development so far.
Good.
We thank him for that, and for him to project into the future. It was a good thing, because that thing went a long way to boosting the morale of many Nigerians. But I will commend the Nigerian army and the president for the effort so far on the Boko Haram. They were really decimated. Great. They were reduced, pushed away to the fringes of the country. What they do now is cowardly attacks on vulnerable places. Before the incursion of this government, we see Boko Haram attacking even military bases. Yes. We see Boko Haram attacking Abuja.
They captured 17 local governments.
Yes, many local governments was under them. We see their flags being hoisted in many places.
In the northeast.
But now, you cannot see any major attack in a major place. What they do is cowardly attacks in selected vulnerable areas. Because you know that even in America, the security cannot be everywhere. There are attacks.
So are you saying that the military under the chief of...
under the Lieutenant General Buratai tried. But we are just like the president, we are expecting more. We are expecting a country where we wake up and not hear news.
So recapturing 17 local government
is a big boost.
Is a big boost.
And they must channel that energy to dealing with other criminalities that are coming up in the north. You see kidnapping, Kaduna, all these things.
Do you see intelligence factor militating against the military, especially as related to Leah Sharibu issue, the kidnapped lady that has not been released by Boko Haram?
You know, I'm not a security expert, but I will say that the case of Leah Sharibu, we need to really dig deep to know what transpired. So many persons are of the opinion
that is the intelligent factor
that she refused converting to Islam. So for that reason, they refused letting her go while setting the others free.
Islam or Christian, does it matter? What matters is how we get to heaven.
But those militants have a designated faith that you must submit to if you want them to be, sympathetic.
All right, Aisha Salihu, yes, you are a Muslim, and I like you for your faith. What would you say about Boko Haram, activities? 17. Mr. President said he appraised himself that before now 17 local governments were captured. Today, none.
Okay, well, first off, I'd like to commend the efforts of Mr. President, his administration, and the security service chiefs, because they deserve a big kudos. As much as we still have a lot of security challenges, but it's been reduced to, regarding Boko Haram now, it's been reduced to the barest minimal, I would say.
Okay.
So I commend the president for that, and I actually do believe in his vision. They've been able to recapture 17 local governments from the hands of the Boko Haram.
Do you have anything to say about Leah Sharibu?
Well, regarding Leah Sharibu, I think she was captured alongside others, and they are yet to release her.
Yeah.
I feel maybe the insurgents are keeping her there for a certain reason, and maybe they want to reach a common ground with the government before she could be released.
Okay.
So I feel we're still hoping that with Muhammadu Buhari's administration, and even in his second term, that the girl gets released and she gets back to her family safely.
All right. Now, number 3, one of the questions Mr. President answered yesterday, he said, my frustration is that we cannot move faster in the prosecution of corrupt officials because of the system. Now, you are a lawyer. You've not been called to the bar, I know, and soon you will be. What system is Mr. President talking about?
You know, we run a tripartite system of justice in Nigeria.
Okay.
It starts from the point of arrest via the police. From arrest, the person gets to the courts. From the court, the person gets to the prison. That is where it completes. So if what the president is referring to in this case of financial fraud is the EFCC. When the EFCC arrests, they go to the court. And you know you must pass through these legal processes. And these are rich people. In my study of law, we were taught that the most difficult cases to prosecute in court is corrupt cases, corruption-related cases. Why? Those persons are rich. They have the technology. They have many things that will not let the case be easily adjudicated.
Just like the one we saw about 50 SAN standing for one man of recent.
You see,
cross-examining a witness.
That is it.
And the poor
you
man
see them
couldn't
hiring
afford
the
that.
best brains in the bar. When the EFCC lawyers will come, how much does EFCC have to pay lawyers? How much are their officials paid? When they come for arrest, they give them 10 million, they forget the arrest. But we thank God that under President Buhari, arrests are being made. But the problem now is at the court.
And under the watchful eyes of Magu.
The problem now lies in the courts. The SANs, these people have money to hire SANs, which the EFCC does not have. They have Rotimi Jacobs. He's doing his best. But they look at, under this Buhari now, most cases that have been decided, they lost. One thing you must know in law is technicality counts far more than the merit of the case. And these lawyers and these rich corrupt officials have always predicated their cases on technicality to escape justice.
But in the judicial system where you said the other time that justice should be seen.
Justice should not just be
served,
but it should be seen to have been manifestly served.
So in this case, if the judges give verdict based on technicalities and myopic evidence before them, could you say that they are actually discharging the responsibility of justice seen to have been served?
Well, it depends. There is what we call procedures in court, and these procedures have constitutional backing. Like these technicalities are recognized in court. When you miss one process, like filing your cases in the court, the time frame, when you miss one process, the judge can strike out the case and it's legal.
Good. If it is legal, it means justice has no moral ground to have been served. Now, in this case, what would you advise the system? How would you advise the system that Mr. President is talking about to be changed?
When President Goodluck Jonathan, for example, became frustrated with these delays in the court, he brought the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, which we all geared towards to ensure that cases get easily passed. The Administration of Criminal Justice System sets time limits within which a case will be brought and be decisively dealt with in the court. If the we have always advocated that this government should come up with a different tribunal for trying corrupt cases. And there should be a law that will stipulate a time frame between when a case is brought before the court and when decision is reached. If this is done constitutionally, I think it will go a long way to tackling these delays in court as regards corruption cases.
Okay, this Administration of Criminal Justice Act,
2015.
Has it not been implemented?
It is implemented. It has been implemented, but it deals with, you know, EFCC has their own laws.
Their own act.
Their own act.
Yes.
We are saying there should be a particular law to the affecting just corruption cases under the EFCC laws.
And not under the judiciary per se.
Or not under a generic law per se. That is under a general criminal law.
Thank you. That is the agenda you are setting for this administration.
Yes, they should quickly make a law.
All right, good. Now, he said, number 4, he said National Assembly was wrong to want to dictate the terms. You know, do you see National Assembly, the legislative arm, to want to dictate the terms, or their own, I think it is to pass the bill and whether exclusive or legislative bills, and then ask Mr. President to assent? Is it that they want to take credit for passing or assenting bill? What does Mr. President mean by trying to dictate the terms? Do you have anything to say about that?
Okay, regarding the National Assembly, yes. I think it was evident in the last, I think you would permit me to say in the last administration, because yes. soon inauguration is starting
exactly.
and a new administration is coming in, even if it's still the same president.
Yeah.
I think it was very evident that the 8th National Assembly and the presidency, they didn't really start off on a good ground.
Yeah.
So they had these issues regarding bills and what
confirmation of appointees.
So you can imagine, I think they had this tussle between them, the presidency and the National
That is
Assembly.
Political power interest.
Yes. It was very, very evident.
Interest on candidates, interest on certain bills.
Yes.
Do you see the tussles coming from the National Assembly as like a kind of scheme for the usual? You know, before now we used to see how they pad, budget, how they implement budget. Budgets don't really seem to, be on our streets, in our houses. We don't see the budget implemented in the civil service and so on. Do you think that this tussle emanates as a result of that?
Like the president rightly said yesterday, he said on patriotism, yeah. He would rate Dogara and Saraki low, very low.
But does the president have the right to rate them, appraise them, or not?
Our president is not a politician, but a leader.
Okay.
And these are politicians trying very hard to play the usual game.
Of course.
They wanted to bring the old game, old usual game of doing politics with everything.
Yes.
But the president wanted to get things done, and which they didn't know want to do.
And he said they frustrated him.
Yeah, they frustrated it. They wanted a government where they will do the old game. Money will come in. Before budget is passed, they collect money from ministries. But this administration doesn't want to do that. They wanted a change from the usual.
Or could it be the system, this presidential system of democracy that we practice, could it be the reason of these hiccups here and there?
Even in developed countries, they lobby. In the US, President Trump lobbied the Congress. You lobby to get your policies passed. You understand?
A genuine people-oriented policies.
Yes.
You
don't need to lobby.
You lobby
we think that
parliamentarians to get it passed.
We think that it is high time that we came together as a people to demand prudence from our leaders, to demand performance from our leaders, to demand good governance. They must come together. But the issue is, just as she rightly said, there has always been, the tussle was planted from June 9th or so in 2015 when the National Assembly was inaugurated, when the choices of the parties for the both houses of the National Assembly did not fall through. You understand? So the president, even though he recognized them, some party men and some of the officials of the government tried as much as possible to denigrate the power of the Senate President and that of the Speaker.
Okay, talking about that aspect, Mr. President is a leader and not a politician. He's a soldier, isn't it? Soldier in Mufti. All right. I will come back again and we'll deal with the issues of I asked Saraki and Dogara how the Fed holding the budget for 7 months, cannot be justified. Shortly after this timeout. Program that deals with the social, political, and economic issues as it trends in this country and the whole world. So if you have your scorecards, your visions, your striking performances, bring them to TVA and we'll deal with it exactly as you want it. Now, continuing on the program this morning, looking at the 20 statements released by Mr. President yesterday, we may not have time to deal with all, but we will deal with some for your listening pleasure. Still with me in the studio is Silvanus Okwe and Aisha Salihu. Now, number 5th statement of Mr. President, he said, I asked Saraki, which is the Senate President of the 8th Assembly of the National Assembly of this country, Nigeria, and Dogara. Dogara, you know, is the outgoing Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now, how they fared holding the budget for 7 months. And he said, holding a budget for 7 months cannot be justified. So 2 persons hold the Nigerian budget for 7 solid months. Was that why they were voted in? And could you say why they hold the budget? Though, Mr. Silvanus, let me hear from you.
You know, it is the constitutional duty, like what many people may refer to as budget padding. Constitutionally, it is meant, the appropriation bill is meant for the members of the National Assembly to remove or add, is at their pleasure. That is the Constitution.
Yes.
Then secondly, the time frame for passing the budget depends on the workability of these different committees in the House. And you will recall that this mistakenly came up during electioneering. So there was break, so many of them went for campaigns, but we are not justifying holding the budget.
In legislative business, when urgent matters as affecting the populace comes, all recess usually are recalled. There is a process of recalling a recess. There is a process of setting up an emergency committee with either the Speaker of the House or the Senate President, as the case may be. So I don't think being on holiday, recess, or whatsoever could be a factor that made the budget to be this delayed.
Well, that is...
Because I was once a legislator at the 30th.
Yes, that is your view as a Nigerian who wants things to get well. But I'm being realistic. This is politics. So many of the parliamentarians went for the electioneering campaigns. They wanted re-election. Almost all of them went for re-election.
Now, do you see the issues of Senate or the Parliament as so said to be affecting the speedy discharge of governance and democracy in this country? Because of recent, is it Senegal or Mali? I think it was Senegal. They completely removed this arm of government, the Senate. They completely eradicate anything, you know, that has to pass through the National Assembly. Is it because of this kind of issues?
You know, we have 2 legislative bodies at the federal level.
Yeah.
And for anything to be passed, for a bill to be said to have been enacted or passed, waiting for presidential assent, there must be a conformity. The ones passed in the House of Reps must conform with the ones passed in the Senate. This is where the delay process begins. I am of the opinion that the unify this legislative institution at the center, one should be scrapped. It is too much. I don't know the essence. They do almost the same job. Yes. The House of Reps does the same thing the Senate does. I don't know the duplication of it. It's just too expensive to manage, and it kills the speedy process in our budget delivery, budget passage, appointment ratification, and other issues. I think they should be unified.
Now, Aisha, thank you, Mr. Silvanus. Aisha, do you remember what happened when a bill was sent to the Senate House, an electoral reform bill? I remember vividly. Now, compare the passage and the speedy passage of that electoral reform bill that the Senate, compared to the budget delay. Do you see something wrong with this, the instrumentality of this Senate.
Okay, like Mr. Silvanus rightly said,
yes.
There is a process for this whole bill passage, implementation, and all of that. I want to agree with him, and at the same time, I want to digress a bit.
Okay.
I feel, like you said, regarding the electoral reform bill, the passage, I think that one was swift.
Swift?
It was swift. And now compared to the whole, the budget now, taking over 7 months.
Good months.
I mean, what are you guys doing?
So when you say that the recess, they have to remove
and the budget
add
is for this year. It's supposed to be for this
year.
And then look at we're almost in June.
You have
already.
to know that when a bill can be passed in a day, a bill can be passed in a day. But a budget has to go to different committees.
At least should not exceed the period
they
of 3
invite
months.
the ministers. They defend the budget. All the ministers cannot even defend the budget in a month.
3 months is enough for any budget to have
bill can be passed in a day.
It can.
But I'm not just 7 months or just 2
months.
months.
It was just
7 months
was too much.
All right. So politics is part of the delay.
Politics, yes.
Or was part of the delay.
Everything is politics. They are playing politics.
Okay. He said I read the 8th Assembly law. We have dealt with that. Now, let me jump to number 8. He said, I am satisfied with the efforts of the service chiefs, but I expect more. I think we've dealt with that. He expects more. Now, which area do you think is expecting more of the service chiefs?
While the Boko Haram can be said to have been, to an extent, decimated, they have not been totally
eradicated.
And there are also surging insecurity in the north. We see the militias, ethnic militias, we see kidnappers, we see all these things coming up. So we are counting on the service chiefs to capitalize, to be buoyed by these successes recorded so far in dealing with Boko Haram, to swing into action and decisively deal with this criminality in the northern part of Nigeria. And just as he said, community leadership has failed in the country. I remember during the pogrom in 1966, after the military coup, when many persons were being killed in the north, Ado Bayero of blessed memory, the then Emir of Kano, when he came out, even the military could not stop other soldiers from killing civilians, because they went to the market everywhere, they were killing people everywhere. The Ojukwu was then in charge of Kano. Ojukwu, who later became the Biafran secessionist leader. But then, when immediately Ado Bayero appeared, record has it that those persons rampaging troops could not even behold his presence. They ran away at his sight. They stopped killing. They stopped whatever they were doing. But now, those influential, traditional leaders in our communities have failed.
And
they have not imbibed this spirit of
politicians too
have compromised them.
They have been compromised. They have been compromised. They have forced them into compromising traditional ethics, because tradition is tradition. It's like a natural law of karma. But today you see governors, jumping into traditional stools and stuff, bringing out chiefs of their own that will do their biddings as politicians. So it is not done traditionally. It happens in Benue, it's happening in Kano, and it's happening in Zamfara. And I believe Abia State is taking the toll. You understand? So do you have something to say about that?
Like they say, charity begins at home. I feel if the community leaders, the traditionalists that are out there to represent a community, if they put in efforts, it's not just bound on the government alone. We are part of the government. They are part of the government. They should put their own efforts to see to reduction of these insecurities everywhere, this crime rate, banditry, kidnappings, killings everywhere. They should.
Because what Mr. President said is that they know these guys. They are the closest persons to these guys, the kidnappers, and so on. Anyway, he said that the traditionalists have failed, and he read the 8th National Assembly law, community leadership at large extent have failed the country. He said, I'm satisfied with the efforts of the service chief, but I expect more.
He said something I would want us to talk about.
Okay, like which one?
He talked about his cabinet members not having many scandals. And I think it's good for an administration. It shows purity. It shows integrity.
Do you think there are
it
no
shows
scandals?
capability.
There are scandals.
No, he didn't say there are no scandals.
But there are
He said
no much
there are
scandals.
Minimal scandals.
Minimal scandals.
Like if you look at the administration of Obasanjo, there was a time we even had to remove the IGP for corruption grounds. There was a time he removed the Minister of Education there on corruption case.
And he tried to remove the Attorney General.
And there was, under Jonathan, we had the Alice Madueke, the Stella Odua, there were many scandals that far supersede.
I think a president serving a senator.
Yes, they far supersede these minimal scandals that erupted in this administration. I think we see the Nigerian government officials at the federal government level living a life that is worthy of government officials. They are prudent. The leadership at the federal level, for once, shows capability and integrity exudes from whatever behavior they exhibited in the last 4 years.
Now, number 15 said, when the time comes, those who qualify to continue with me will be unveiled. I will stop there today, and I want to ask you, which ministry do you think, or department, you understand, or agency, do you think would actually continue with Mr. President's second term? Aisha, do you have anything to say?
I think the Minister...
Aisha first.
I'll give you the honors.
It's okay.
I think the Minister of Information, though sometimes he's very intelligent and articulate, though sometimes he misses up issues, but I like his intelligence, and I want him to be retained.
That is Lai Mohammed.
But he should just try to be accurate sometimes. I also think that the Minister of Works, Housing and Power,
I would disagree with Fashola completely.
Fashola should be retained, but he should be stripped of this manning these three large ministries. They should be given power or works.
Exactly. But I don't see Fashola. I will not support the reappointment of Raji Rasaki Abi Fashola. You know why? You know, Fashola was performing incredibly well in Lagos State as governor. Everywhere you see electricity. Even he went to invent bioelectricity. You know, now Fashola has been given these honors. Nigerians have been crying of blackout, total blackout. You know, we pay this, what do you call it, from the acronyms they have been given to these bodies generating power. From NEPA to power holding to JED to what have you. I expected an absolute reform and revocation of some licenses, especially the corrupt officials that never allow us to breathe with light. Common Nigerians are not asking for more. And when you talk about roads, go to the rural areas. Yes, you are creating good roads at the urban areas. What about the rural areas?
But the federal government
as a matter of
that exclusive reserve of developing roads in the rural areas. Some places are state roads, and the federal government does not have the right to dabble into them.
The federal road that passed across Makurdi to Enugu, let me say to go roundabout. Have you been witnessing the state of the road, the dilapidated state of that road? I'm not talking about a decade. Over a decade, it has been like that. Fashola even came down, flew helicopter to that place, and promised with the Minister of Agriculture that before Christmas or January 30th, 2015, is on my record, directly on my record. I have the record. I was live with Fashola there. I was live with the Minister of Agriculture there. They promised, you know, rehabilitating the road. The road is unpassable, is unplightable. I get him now. And it has been there for more than a decade and 5 years. I get what I'm saying. So for Fashola to promise and not enact the promise, I don't understand. If you go to the rural area, you see how they keep blinking the light, you know, power holding, they hold the light to themselves like this. They will give you today. The next 1 week, you will not see the light.
There is no electricity for artisans to use to work. There are people who don't have jobs, they are graduates, they have barbing salon, they have a hairstylist salon, they have this, they have that. Some of them, tend to making shoemakers. They do all those things with the electricity. And the worst of it is that every month, this Power Holding and JED comes to collect B. They name one like flat rate B. What is Fashola doing with all those meters? And if there is a disco in charge of the electricity, whatever licensing and distribution, they should be revoked, completely revoked. Why are you the minister? You should make policies that will, under your jurisdiction, that should alleviate the suffering of your people, especially as regard your sector. So I don't see Fashola, I will not support Fashola going back as minister.
I think,
do you have an...
I think, well, Minister of Agriculture did well too, but I think in conclusion to all of these whole ministers that have tendered their resignation, I think that's why this new administration is coming in. I feel the president himself must have noticed where these ministers that are outgoing, where they lacked, where they performed low.
Yes,
so,
below expectation.
So I feel he has a new list, which he's yet to reveal.
But youths must be included in that
Yes,
list.
I agree with that. And I feel he's going to make better choices.
They have not done enough in the youth ministry, Ministry of Youth and Sports Development. They've not done enough because you see talents everywhere. Our youth, we have talent, enormous talent in this country, even more than Europe and America. Our youth, flying abroad to go and look for soccer.
Well,
that ministry, thank God for the social investment, the Empower, and so on. We'll have a lot to discuss on this very statement of Mr. President. Thank you, my special guest of honor this morning, my special analyst. We'll continue from here probably tomorrow to beam light on some of the statement of Mr. President. And promisingly, I may be coming with what Okorocha said. I will be president 2023. Stay tuned for spectacle within the week. We will be coming with spectacular analysis that will intrigue you and give you for your viewing pleasure. Once again, I'm Daniel Atai, your host.